All right, the next thing we're going to do is perform some very simple transformations and manipulations to this MIDI in our Max for Live device. So open it up again, get out of patching mode by pressing Command Option E. This is what we have so far. One other thing that I just wanted to add before we went any further is I wanted to copy and duplicate these two MIDI this number box and this MIDI note message here, because I want to change this comment to pitch, and I just wanted to illustrate that you can use these live number boxes. So I'm going to click on this new one that I created, Command I to open up the inspector. You can use these to display a few different things other than just numbers. For instance, if we scroll down to parameters, find unit style, instead of integer, if we set this to MIDI note and then connect that same outlet to this second number box, jump into, because it was copied from something that was in presentation mode, this will also be in presentation mode because you can see the red highlights there. Jump into presentation mode, but it's not arranged very nicely, so we'll just kind of fix that. Get these kind of all evenly spaced. Save and close. Now what you'll notice once those disappear is that we've got the MIDI note number and also the pitch. Yeah. So you can use that to kind of just visualize that in another way as well. Maybe pitch isn't the best word. I realize I should just check what Ableton or what Max calls it. So what unit style did we select? Oh, that's the MIDI note. And this is kind of, so maybe we can call this note and we can call this number. That might be a good way to do it. So now if we just check that out in presentation mode. So we've got the MIDI velocity, the MIDI number, and the note name. That kind of makes sense to me. You might want to name them slightly differently, but that's kind of working for me at this point. All right, so what I said was we wanted to perform a simple transformation. The first of these transformations is a transposition. So I just want to demonstrate how we can do that quite simply using a addition box. So press N and then add in a plus. I'll zoom in a little bit to get this plus box. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add this number to the left side of the addition box. We are going to create another live number box. We could potentially copy this one. Oh, let's just make a new one from scratch. So N and then live.numberbox. Take the output of this and plug it into the addition. Let's make sure that this is also, let's just adjust the range or just check the range on that. So this is our new transposition number box. Scrolling down. Yeah, well, the range is going to be 127. We definitely don't want to add any more than that. So this should work for now. We might make a change to it later. But that's good for the moment. So then let's give that a comment. Transpose. Cool. And then coming out of that, I guess what we'll see is I'm just going to copy these two again, so duplicate, is the result of this number plus however much we decide to transpose it with. So let's have a look at, see how this, maybe we'll need that. Oh, let's actually, we can kind of just like, maybe we don't need to present these for the moment. So I'll remove them from the presentation, but we'll just leave it there so we can see it in the patch. Now finally, here's the fun part. So far, you may have noticed that we're not actually passing any MIDI from this part of our patch back to live. The MIDI is just going directly from the MIDI in straight to the MIDI out, like we saw in the first video. If we want to hear the effects of this transposition, we're going to have to delete this cable, the one that connects the MIDI and the MIDI out. And then down here, we're going to use a kind of like the opposite object to MIDI pass, and that one's called MIDI format. So N and then MIDI format. And there's a bunch of ways you can do this, but I wanted to use MIDI format just to kind of highlight that it's like almost the reverse of this one. And if we have a quick look at MIDI format, it's the same in that if you send a list, so that represents the pitch and the velocity of a MIDI note, this MIDI format will transform those two numbers and format them in the correct MIDI way, so that we can send that back to our MIDI out, and Live will be able to play it and just interpret it as a normal MIDI note. So I'm going to move this over a little bit. Not the neatest patch, but that's okay. Maybe I'll put that there. And finally, what we need to do then is pack the MIDI note number and the velocity, which is over here. Just move it down so it's in line. Pack them back together. So to do that, we use a pack object. So N and then pack. And then we'd put that into this side and put the velocity output into this side, put that into the left input of our MIDI format, and let's test it out. Oh, one thing we need to do is add these to our transpose and our comment to our presentation so that we can transpose them. So let's put that there. That looks nice. All right. Maybe I'll put the text on the same side of the number box for consistency. Play with this later, but anyway, save, close. Great, so now if I play my MIDI, this is the MIDI that's coming in, and if I transpose this, it's moved up one semitone. So that seems to be working, but you may have noticed there's some MIDI notes that are getting stuck, and this is all part of the this exploration of how MIDI works. It's because when I was transposing that, sometimes I was changing the MIDI note before the MIDI format, and then the instrument after it received the note off message, and therefore it just got a note on message and then just stayed on. That's quite a common problem when you're routing MIDI stuff around. So the way to fix that is in between the pack and our MIDI number. If you hold Shift N, you can create a new object that's already connected. We're going to type, this is going to be flush. And instead of putting this velocity directly into the pack, we'll put it into the flush. And then we've got to add one more thing. So pretty much it looks the same, except that I'm going to create a bang here and take that out of the transpose number box and plug that into the flush. And what that does is anytime I transpose or change the number, it'll just clear out all the MIDI notes that are in there, flush them all out so that we don't have any hanging notes. Again, this one here is coming from our velocity, which is over there. So let's save and try that now. And what we're hoping for is when I change the transposition, we don't get any hanging notes. So here we go. Change the transposition. And you can see if I change it during a note, it just chops it off, which isn't perfect, but definitely better than having hanging notes. Awesome. One thing I realized that I'd like to have now is this is kind of the MIDI input. So maybe I'll put a label here that says MIDI in. And now that I've transposed it, I'd love to see what MIDI is coming out over here. So let's see if we can affect that really quickly. First off, we just need to put in a comment in presentation mode called MIDI input. If I zoom in, we'll be able to see this some more, but there we go. And if I wanted to make this look more like a bigger label or something, I could click on this comment, go to its inspector and increase the font size here. Maybe like, what does 20 look like? Whoa. That's all right. Cool. maybe a tiny bit big. Let's try 16. That's better. I can copy this. I'm going to put this over here. And this is going to be our output, at least at this stage. Jump out of presentation mode. The only problem with making those or copying stuff in presentation mode, they kind of get left there and get a bit messy. So I guess ideally you'd be doing this stuff in edit mode or patching mode. So where's our output going to be? What do we need for our output? Oh, we need a copy of the velocity. So I'll just copy these, duplicate, bring it over here, and plug the velocity in. That won't change. And then a copy of these two, duplicate, bring them down here, just so that it kind of reflects what I've got in my presentation mode, make it easy to organize when I go into patching mode. And what is this supposed to have? So we've got the velocity, the note number, once it's been transposed, so that would come out of here, and then the note number and the note, MIDI note name itself is the same, so I could connect that like that. Let's have a look at these in presentation mode. Oh, they're very stacked up. This is going to be hard to untangle. Hold shift. There we go. Cool. Play with the alignment later, but I'm going to save that. And what I'm expecting now is these numbers here should be offset by this transposition. Here we go. Currently it says 60, 67, but if I add 2, great. So you can see the number or the note that's coming in is 60, and the note that comes out is +2, so 62. Great. Maybe rather than MIDI output, I could call this transposed or something. Again, you can kind of have a bit of a play with what you think would be the best name. Great, that's the first part. One more to go.